Yo, what is up, YouTube and people of Twitch? I just got barely done today playing a new Battle Royale game called Fear the Wolves, and I wanted to give my thoughts, my perspective on it. I know people will have questions, so I'm going to put all my thoughts and everything on the game, hopefully here in this video, to answer questions. So, first off, the game is called Fear the Wolves. It's a new Battle Royale game. It's coming out on the 18th to Steam Early Access. They're doing a closed beta. And I was lucky enough to be able to jump into the closed beta and check it out today. So I'm going to go through the game. I'm going to go through like the pros first, what I thought the game did really well, and then I'm going to go into some of the cons. So first, starting off, this game graphically looks really, really good. It does a really good job on its graphics, and it does a really good job on the environment in the game. Like the different foliage, the different areas, and the variations in the environment are really, really solid. That's this game's number one. Like, if I was going to rate this game, the best thing about this game is the graphics, the environment, all of it combined together. Super, super solid. And what I really mean by that is the graphics look good. It looks more of a realistic feel. As you're going throughout the map, you come to like just different little environments. Like you're going through. There was this part I was going through this red forest and then opened up more into like a green forest, and there's different foliage in this area. And then you know there's like an open field over here that you go through, and then there's the town. And we eventually found like this river system and this swamp and this bog, and it does a really good job. And all of those environments look really good. The foliage and everything in the game looks top notch. And to add in on top of that, they have this really cool weather system. Now, the weather system, not only does it affect the weather and how the game looks, but it also gives debuffs to your player depending on what the weather is. So the different weathers they had was like, there's fog. Obviously, fog makes it so the game, it makes it so things are less visible. There's also wind. So wind makes it so you can't run as fast, and it also makes it so that your bullets are less accurate at range. There's storm, which storm is rain and wind combined together, and also there's like lightning going on in the background. It looks really, really awesome when that's happening. But you get the debuffs from wind, which is slower movement, harder to shoot, and the rain makes it so that vehicles handle worse. I think it might have done something else, but when I think back, it might have just been vehicles. There was one called like heat, which is just normal, but it gets hotter. And it makes it so you can't hold your breath as long. You get debuffs for your health. On health items, they don't heal you as much. And I believe there was one more. That might have been it, though. So, yeah, the weather combined with, like, the environments you're going through, and the weather changes, like, every 2 to 3 minutes. And the weather, if I didn't mention, dead players vote on the weather, and it changes every 2 to 3 minutes. So there's a vote every 2 to 3 minutes, and it changes. So you could be going through a game. It could be like fog, and then it turns into rain, and then it turns into a storm, and then it goes like, and it turns really hot, and then it goes back to a storm. It changes throughout the game, and it makes the game feel alive. I really enjoyed that about this game. So instead of using a zone, instead of like a circle coming in, it uses a system similar to what Radical Heights used. If any of you guys played Radical Heights, Radical Heights was a BR game that eventually ended up falling apart. The studio and everything shut down. But they use a system similar to Radical Heights where they, instead of it being a circle, they kind of square out different parts of the map, and that map becomes irradiated, and different hazards start popping up in those zones. So, like, and it has a progression too. They put these hazards in, and they're these aura giving off hazards. I think they're called distortions. So like at first there's these like radiation pockets called distortions. If you go through that, you start taking damage, you take radiation damage. And something else also cool is when you take radiation damage, you can't regain that health unless you have certain items that get rid of radiation. You actually heal over time normally, very slow. You can also eat food, and I think there's drinks that make it so that you regain health faster. There's medkits, bandages, all that. But it's something a little bit different is when you take radiation damage, you have to have certain items to cure your radiation, which I thought was interesting. And there's also items that give you a bigger radiation resistance in the game. And then eventually what ends up happening is in the zones. This is all happening in the zone. This is like the zone that's pushing you more into the play zone towards the end game, right? There's this like red mist that like starts floating through the air. And you have to sprint out of that. The longer you stay in that, the more radiation I believe you start taking. And eventually after that, after the distortions and the red mist, eventually the zone just becomes heavily radiated, and I think you take a lot of damage if you're still in it at that point. Something also cool that this game does is it has AI wolves that attack players. And this is something that a lot of people have brought up for a while in BR games. Different ideas for BR games, like what if you had animals or things around the map that attacked you? Well, this game is doing it. It's doing it with these wolves. I got attacked today by, a pack of 3 wolves at one point, a pack of 2 wolves. There was sometimes just 1 wolf. The wolves currently in the game are not that good, though. Like, the AI for the wolves is pretty bad. They run around. They're not that good at actually attacking you. They're kind of clumsy looking, clunky would be a good way to describe it. But if the devs are able to iron out those issues, and you could actually have like a pack of wolves that are vicious and they're actually scary coming after you, and they pose more of a threat than they do currently, it could make the game feel really, really awesome. Like, you hear some wolves start coming up on you, it could be great. And it seems like you can actually end up spotting them and avoid them as well. So it adds another element to the game of watching out for wolves as you're playing. Something really cool is the end game. So instead of it just being a battle royale where you have to kill everybody and then whoever the last man standing wins, there's a helicopter evac. And so at the very end of the game, what happens? The helicopter flies into the end zone after all the other areas have been radiated, and it pushes you into the safe zone. A helicopter flies in, drops smokes, drops flares. A rope comes down from the helicopter. And instead of having to kill everyone at the end of the game, you can board the helicopter. And if you board the helicopter and you evac, you win. So it's kind of a really cool end game from your typical battle royale instead of just killing everybody off. Now, here's the thing. It takes a while to board the helicopter. Like, you have to climb this rope, or you're being pulled up on this rope. And it takes about like 10, 15 seconds, I think. And as you're going onto the chopper, it lets everybody know that someone is boarding the helicopter. So you just turn and you can see this guy being raised up. And if you kill them, he's dead, obviously. It doesn't make it to the chopper. But if the guy is able to make it, then he wins. And so it kind of adds this new strategy to the end of the game where everybody's kind of hanging out around the helicopter. Or maybe if you got to that helicopter fast enough and you like killed a couple guys next to the chopper, you could just board the chopper, get on it, boom, you win the game because, the other players are not close enough yet. So it adds this new element, this new strategy to the end game, which I really like, rather than just killing everybody off. So yeah, those are some of the pros. Like, the graphically looks really good. The environment's amazing. The weather system's cool. They don't use like a regular zone. Instead, they use this radiation thing, zone with different hazards, which I thought were really cool. They have like AI wolves that they're not the best right now, but if they made them better, they could be really amazing. The helicopter evac at the end of the game is really good. So those are all the good things. Now let's go to the cons. And like the cons, some of these cons are pretty big. And they're definitely holding the game back. These cons need to get fixed for this game to ever actually be a good game. The server issues are the biggest one. This, like most Battle Royale games, also something I should mention, this game is being made on Unreal Engine 4. So it has some of the similar issues that you see in other Unreal Engine 4 games, like PUBG is on Unreal Engine 4. So early on, the game can have up to 100 players. And early on, when it has 100 players or close to 100 players, the server lag is bad. There's a ton of rubber banding. You shoot people in the early game, they won't take damage. I dumped like 90 rounds into this one dude with an AR at some point. He just wouldn't die. But usually, after it gets down to like 30 players, that stuff kind of figures itself out, and the game starts running a lot better at those points. But yeah, there's some big issues with the servers. That's the biggest issues for this game. If it can overcome the servers like most Battle Royales, if it can overcome the server, the desync, the rubber banding, the network code issues, if these devs can do that, this game has a ton of potential. It does. It could end up being very good. Something else that's a big issue is the frame stutters. This actually might be tied to the rubber banding as well. You get these like little frame drops or these frame stutters that while you're running around ends up not being so good. Obviously, like no one wants to deal with frame stutters. So that's another big issue. The loot currently in the game is very low, and the loot experience isn't all that great. I don't really know what they could do to make it better, but it might just be because of how the game was running. It wasn't running the best. It made it that so like looting wasn't as enjoyable. Like sometimes when you're running around in PUBG, like looting can actually be can end up being fun, but it might be that it runs smoother now than what it used to. So the looting, it's low loot, and maybe that's what they're going for. Maybe they're going for a lower loot experience. But I still think that they probably should up the loot a little bit. It was very hard to find loot, and it seemed like there was only very specific areas where you could go where you could end up finding a decent amount of loot, and there was never a single time, even though I was trying to loot quite a bit, that I felt like I had a ton of loot, like I don't need anything anymore. Recoil on the guns, that's another thing. Recoil on the guns, all the guns ended up feeling very similar. And also the UI wasn't that good. But those things, the low loot, the recoil, the UI, those can all be things just from beta. You know, it's early on. Those are things that they'll focus on later. Hopefully what they end up focusing on now is the server issues, because those are definitely the biggest problems. Those will hold this game back, and those are the things that make this game currently not that like enjoyable of an experience. Like all those other things that I mentioned, all those pros gets weighed down heavily by the server issues. So hopefully they'll end up fixing those. I'll probably give the game another shot on the 18th when it goes to early access on Steam, and hopefully by then they fix a little bit of this stuff. That's not that long of a time. It's only about 8. That's only about 8 days. But this will probably be a game that I jump back into and check out every once in a while. And if they ever get the server issues down and fix some of those things, this game has a really, really high potential to be a solid battle royale. So those are my thoughts on Fear the Wolves. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys next time.